right. Well, hey there. I am Alex Johnson, executive pastor here, and I've got my good friend CJ. Say hi, everybody. CJ,
Hi, everybody.
what? Tell us a little bit about it. We've been friends for about over a year now, hanging out in a guys group Thursday mornings.
Yep.
Coming out doing that, even in the midst of all the stuff we had this last year, we stuck through it.
Yep.
But you got family, kids. Tell us a quick little bit.
Yeah. Quick little bit. I have a wife, Sarah, lovely wife, and two lovely girls, Wakely and Harlow. Wakely got baptized, would have been last November. And all the family was up here for that. Sarah and I moved here about 3 years ago. We spent some time in North Carolina, but mostly in the Portland, Oregon area, and Camas, Washington, if anyone's familiar. We found Gold Creek actually before we found our house up here. So it's kind of interesting that it fell into place that way. And we've just been so blessed with everything that the Lord has provided us. We wanted to find a place where we could really give back and the kids could be engaged and, have never looked back since. And super thankful that Alex asked me to, help participate and go through this. I think the 1 Year Bible is an awesome idea. I've never done it myself, but what a great way to do it as a church.
And now you're in it.
And now I'm in it. Like I'm going to be like, okay, you got to at least get to 26 days, everybody, because that's mine. And then after that, like hopefully after watching this, you want to keep going.
Hopefully we'll find out. This is the do or die moment for a lot of people, right?
I guess, right? Like everybody says, you got to do it in New Year's resolution and 3 weeks and all that. And what was it? 21 days, I think is what everybody's been saying in a lot of this. But in all reality, like I love the passages that you asked me on the 26th day of January to be a part of because they're super vivid. Like these are like times.
Well, we got some good stuff. Let's jump into it. So
okay.
we start in the Old Testament and we're going to jump into Exodus.
Yes.
Right, chapter 2. And I think one of the hard parts about, I'm curious what you guys think. So as you're watching this, jump in, subscribe, or hopefully you've already subscribed, but add comments in there what you've been kind of seeing the scripture do, because that's what makes it fun, not just listening to us babble up here and the others. But Exodus chapter 2, there's a little context that we kind of miss if you jump right into chapter or verse 11, which is where we pick up. But talk a little bit about your initial thoughts here of what you saw going on there, the vividness of it. Let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah. So specifically, like Exodus 2:11, we just come off of like some really like what I would say awesome, news. And part of the story is Moses is found by Pharaoh's daughter and basically like raised at that point by the Egyptians. And, I think that like the break in the action right there where we pick up is just important to remember, right? Yesterday, if you were paying attention, right? Like it ends on a pretty positive note, like, oh yeah, this is great. Moses and the reeds, I remember this from as a kid.
Right. And now he's all grown up.
And we get like, Moses is doing some,
Moses grows up real quick.
He grows up real quick, takes out an Egyptian, and in that,
But he didn't just take him out. Like even the words they use to describe it. So like there's at the point, he literally says, right, that he was looking in all directions, right? Like, okay, no one's going to find me. He takes out the Egyptian because the Egyptian was beating on his people. In fact, they even called him his people is what they said. And then all of a sudden, what does he do, right? He runs.
It's a fit of rage, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a fit of rage. Like he freaks out because he's like, oh, I'm going to do this, right? He kills him, dumps him in the bushes. And he knows he's like, his days are numbered after that, right? So he's gone.
Yeah.
Okay. And
he's a fugitive on the run.
He's a fugitive, right? We even said that when we were chatting about it. It's like, Harrison Ford, right? He's on the run. Did he do it or not, right? But we find out and we know that they know he did it, right? Like, clearly, like Pharaoh knows.
Well, he gets word.
He gets word.
And then the fact that he doesn't just run, but he takes off. And like nowadays, you were talking about this earlier. Nowadays, people would go, who helped him?
Yeah, who helped him, right?
How did he get out of that situation?
There'd
be no way that he could get out, but yet he gets out. And then where does he go? I'm just vivid in my mind. I'm thinking, okay, we're here in Snohomish. Like he ends up like out in Vantage, right? Out in the middle of nowhere. Like he crossed the mountains, so he's in the middle of nowhere. And then all of a sudden,
No trees, no water, right? Think of it like not irrigated,
right.
right? Like not plateau
Which is
irrigated.
kind of advantage, unless you're down like on the river. But if you get up there in the hill, like, oh,
True.
man,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's dry up there, right? I
right.
mean, as you're coming out. And so, he's at the bottom of a well, right? Like we don't know, like actually at the bottom of a well, but we think like he very well could have been hiding out down there, right?
Yeah.
Like he's on the run. He's in the desert. This is a place where he could survive, right? He's at the bottom of a well, and this well's being used by shepherds and the families,
Yeah.
and in all of this, this is how he meets his wife, right? Like the sisters take him back home.
Well, eventually they do, right?
Yeah.
They get helped out by him, and they actually leave him there. Typical woman, right? They get the help. They don't want anything to do with the guy that helped out, right?
He brought him the water, saved him, helped him. Anyway, yeah. I mean, but like they have to come back because their father is like, "What are you doing? Like, bring that guy back here. He's a good guy. We're looking for a good guy for you."
That if we just pause and think about it, in the midst of like, he must have been broken. He didn't. He grew up in Pharaoh's family, and now he's on the run. Not that he wouldn't have been a tough guy and could have, but he must have been just in his brokenness. And in the brokenness, God begins to use him. He finds his it's come to be wife, right? He begins. This is when things begin to turn, and I just can't help but go, wow, how God used him in this. And that's when we jump into the scene that everybody knows, the scene that I wish we could have pyrotechnics to make it happen, right? But that the bush that just catches on fire, and who shows up in it? I mean, God.
Yep.
What do we think? What you were talking about that, the imagery that you saw in that, about that bush and on fire and God's presence. You're kind of talking a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the Bible, there's, a lot of different places where people who are reading it can be like, wow, like supernatural, superpower, right? You know what I mean? Like flash of, burst of light, like all of these things. And this is one of them, right? We're going to see in a little bit. We get one of the gospel versions of that too, which is cool.
Yeah.
But, in all of this, right, this is where God really puts Moses to work for him.
Yep.
Right. And Moses throughout this whole time, right, I think, right, like after he, did this, he's, first of all, he grows up like wondering why he's part of this Egyptian family, that's the king, the Pharaoh, how much guilt does he have, right?
Yeah.
All of that, right? On top of he just killed somebody. Now he's on the run. And he has to have faith in God at the bottom of a well, that things are going to get better, right? And this is where God shows to him, like, thanks for having faith. Now I need your help, right?
Right. And it's part of God's plan. And you think about this, if you go back and we get the benefit of, and this is the great part about when we do read, and we're going to jump into Matthew here in a sec, but when we read in this and we get the Old Testament and the New Testament, you get to see them come through it. But in the midst of our own lives, we have stuff that happens and we don't get the benefit of that. We don't get the benefit to see that trial of searching for God in the midst of this. Yeah, to us it happened like that. Right? When you're reading it, just he believed, he had it, right? God's at a burning bush, and God literally says, I wrote it down, right? God tells Moses that what do you say here? God was telling Moses that of how to refer to his Hebrews when he goes back to be with them, and Moses is second guessing it. What do I tell him? I'm sorry, CJ. But
No. Yeah.
I can relate to a little second guessing when I feel God's nudging, which I think today would be kind of the Holy Spirit's nudging in our life of that we're supposed to take this step. We're supposed to go do that. Like, okay, is it really going to work? Are people going to want to be a part of it? So these are when the scriptures come alive to me, when we get to see how God's at work, not just there, but then how it relates to us, I think, today.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
How about the gospel?
Ooh, we go good. Matthew 17 is where we are, verses 10 through 27. Okay, so context here, right? This is where, just before this, what had happened?
So just before this, yesterday, right, if you're paying attention, and I had like kind of an interesting thought about how this all unfolded maybe, but like Moses and Elijah come down, they're up on the mountain.
So we're back with Moses again.
Back with Moses, and Moses and Elijah come down on the mountain. Jesus and Peter and a couple of his other disciples are up there, and all of a sudden, Moses and Elijah and Jesus are chatting, and God comes out of nowhere and basically says to the disciples, hey, by the way, I'm really pleased with him. Keep following him. Keep doing what you're doing because you're doing the right thing. He is my son, right? Like that's what I imagine happened yesterday, right? Guys get knocked out. All of a sudden, they're freaked out. They're crazy, right? Jesus is like, oh man, all right, now I got to go deal with that God. Just a second. Moses and Elijah, right? Maybe
Okay.
at this time, like told Jesus, and this is what I think maybe it happened, right?
Okay.
We
I'll
don't
go with it.
know,
We
right?
talked about this. I'll go with
But
it.
but but Moses and Elijah tell Jesus, like, hey, this is the plan, right? And the plan is you're gonna have to die, and they're coming for you, and you're gonna have to like really kick it into gear, right? Because we see them coming down the mountain, and I just get just this like Jesus is like really kind of ticked off, like, all right, we got to
So
get
that's where we jump
going,
into it, right?
That's what happened yesterday, and now here we are today. He's coming down,
Right.
and all of a sudden,
Well, he talks about that he's kind of given an analogy, and they're like, "Oh, you're talking about John the Baptist," and you literally I can just see Jesus going, "Seriously, guys, like how many times have I had to tell you who I am? Like, why are we talking? No, this is what." And I just sense him being annoyed with it, which I think God sometimes gets annoyed with me,
yep,
with my inability to listen. And I don't know if you can relate to this or
regularly,
not, but just that where you feel like, oh man, did I disappoint? But this is where we get God's grace, and this is where begins to get revealed, right? That while the lack of their faith is annoying to Jesus, but yet Jesus doesn't stop, because then what happens? He shows them right after that.
he shows him. He like casts out the demon from the kid that none of the disciples could, and basically said, "Because you don't have enough faith in me, that's why you couldn't do it." Right? And they're kind of like ashamed, embarrassed. You know, they couldn't do it. Right?
They
came
get
to
embarrassed in front of
them.
everybody a little bit.
A little bit.
And
But
then
Jesus is like, dude, I just, we got to get this going here. You guys better believe now, because there's not going to be much time left for you to believe. Right?
And then we keep walking, and they end up at the temple.
End up at the temple.
And I can just imagine this. Jesus just kind of walks right by the temple guards, the people who are collecting the taxes, right? Jesus doesn't even care, just whatever.
Breezes right by.
And who stays back, right, to try to handle it? Peter's there, and he's like, he gets challenged.
Yep, they say, hey, do you pay the temple tax? Yeah, right. And Peter's like, yeah, we are here. And Jesus is like, hold up.
Yeah, check.
Is it us, the citizens, or in different versions? We talked about this, comparing different versions. The other alternative,
right,
to the citizens are the conquered, or maybe the visitors in some versions, and so like just the people who are not the citizens of the land, right? Are we taxing the citizens? Are we taxing the guests, if you will, right? Another way to put it.
Yeah, that's exactly what he says, right? Do kings tax their own people, or the people they have conquered?
The people they have conquered, right? And that's said different ways in different versions, right? But at the same time, it's like, hey, who are we really charging here, right?
And so this is where it's really cool, is because then Jesus goes to Peter and he challenges him to see what faith he has.
Yep.
And what's he do? Where does he tell him to go?
Listen, whatever money they need, why don't you just run down to the lake, throw your line out, you catch a fish real quick, and that fish will have exact change of whatever the temple tax is. Okay?
And
you don't trust me?
Stop, drop the mic. It's done. We end right there.
That's it.
It's just got it done. And so you're left to believe of, okay, he had the faith to go do it.
Yep.
Because he just had been challenged of not having the faith. And so you just have to imagine especially because he shows up later, that he must have. If he hadn't had the faith, I think Jesus would have been like, yeah, bro, you're.
Yeah, or he was like, oh, yeah, I guess, I have so much faith, I don't even need to go do that.
Yeah. All right, so we'll keep going here.
Yep.
We get now our Psalms, and we're going to finish off with Proverbs. So, Psalms, isn't it? It's interesting. Here we have David kind of lamenting a little bit. And we relate right back into what Moses was just going through.
When you read that, think about maybe where Moses was in this exact same scripture in Genesis, or today in Genesis or Exodus. Sorry, in Exodus, where he's at the bottom of the well, right? Like, is he saying this exact psalm?
This is what he starts with: my God, why have you abandoned me? Like, I mean, boom.
Yep.
So, and then he continues on, right? Every day I call to you. My God, you don't not answer. Again, this is where, when we read it, we don't quite know how long he was wandering the desert when he did. Now, this is David and his own thing that he's going through, but I think we can really relate to this about, being mocked, being scorned, having tough times. And this is where I really enjoy it, where the Psalms and often the Proverbs tie right back into, and even, we saw where we had Moses again in the Gospels, but it ties back into the struggles that was going on in the Old Testament. I don't know if it always does, but today I believe it really did. I mean, in fact, even one time, at verse 6 here, it says, "But I am a worm and not a man. I'm scorned and despised by all." At this point, the Hebrews didn't like him. Again, going back into Exodus, Hebrews didn't like him. The Egyptians were after him,
Hmm.
right? And then he was being told to go back in. And it just, I don't know. I know this was David's struggle, but yet
It's applicable to everyone, and it's timeless, right?
it goes, which rolls right
The
in.
living word, right? Like we always talk about the
And it
living
rolls
word.
right into Proverbs, right?
Yep.
Which Proverbs 5, verses 7 through 14. And I'll hit forward here on my U version here. So this is an interesting one, right? Now, this is one where I think we got to be careful. If you don't pay attention, again, we say, do you pay attention to what we read yesterday? But if you don't pay attention, you're just like, okay, so now my sons listen to me, never stray from what I'm about to say. Wait, what's that? If you read this is a warning about adultery. It's a warning, like this
Yep.
is a warning about sexual sin, about stuff that was going on. And so, but yet through it, it's more than just adultery. It's more than just that, because it's the lust. It's not always sex. It's about the things that can tear us apart
Yep.
and take us away from God.
Yeah, the desire is to take us away from God. Exactly right. Like the original sin, right? Thinking we know what's better for ourselves than God, and
Yeah.
and ultimately, that lust is comes in different forms. And I would encourage you today, right? Because if you have yesterday and if you have tomorrow, today is the middle part of this chapter, which is probably most applicable to all of those different
Yep.
things, in life. So as you are thinking and reflecting on that, just try to apply that yourself, even if it isn't directly into an adulterous situation. Try to apply it to something else, and recognize, that it's a fall.
When we talked about this, when you and I met before we came out here, the key to this, right? The key to what this is saying is the discipline in staying in a relationship with God.
Hmm.
And when you're in it, it makes these challenges so much easier. But when you're out of it, it's hard. And CJ, not to put you on the spot, but
Yeah.
you've shared a little bit to me personally, and I hope you're all right doing this, but you've gone through some struggles, some
Yep.
alcohol struggles, which then created trouble in your marriage.
Hmm.
Share just a little bit here in the last few seconds we have, just about that and how God helped you get through that and helps
Yeah.
you still.
Yeah, I mean, the faith or the discipline. I think that sometimes they're one and the same. Some people ask, "Do I need the faith or the discipline first?" Right? And it took me having the faith in order to get that discipline from God. Right? To stay away from alcohol, to realize that it was a poison to my body, and to know that it wasn't for me. And it took a long time for me in my brain to realize that, before I was like, nope, I just can't have any of this. And I need that discipline. And the Lord gave me that discipline, right? Like
Yeah.
that discipline is not just done on our own in all of this stuff. And so you've got to have the faith that discipline can come from Him. So,
That's good. I mean, and think about you've shared how your marriage, I mean, really it was a do or die thing, right? For
It was a
this.
do or die thing, and I would encourage anyone who feels like they're in a marriage that is in a do or die situation to literally sober up, right? To literally, both of you, one of you, everyone, whether it's alcohol or any other of those sins or lusts, like money, spending, job,
Yeah.
career, anything, like sober up,
Yeah.
because all of that's just clouding your vision, right? And it's not going to allow you to see in your partner, in your spouse, what you saw in them before you had all that, no offense,
That-
crap,
The garbage,
right?
the stuff
Yeah,
that fills
the
up.
garbage, right?
Well, it's so key, being disciplined. We hope that you've been able to be disciplined in your reading up through now. Hopefully it's something you keep doing throughout the year. I've read the One Year Bible many, many, many times. I think I'm coming up on about year 10 now. Since I've been on staff, it's always great. New things come out every time I read it. So hopefully you like it. But if you've been enjoying this and you haven't done it already, be sure to share this stuff with people. Add the comments in the comment section. That's what makes it good, is when we can get rich like that.
Yeah,
And then,
even if they're not in the One Year Bible, right?
Right.
Share, if you know that like this situation might apply to somebody, like just hit the share, right? You never know if they're gonna, oh yeah, maybe I'll catch up. Like it's January.
Right.
I know that people that have caught up, in April on a One Year Bible, because they're really determined, right? They have to do like 4 days a day, or but
do it.
You can do it, right? So thank you, Alex.
Hey, CJ, thanks. It's been
Gold
good.
Creek, love everyone, and want
There
to
we
keep
go.
this going.
All right. Hey, until next time. Thanks for joining us.